Can you aim your camera lower, or did it shift?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I don't know. My chair probably sank.
Yeah. Oh, that works better. That works much better. All right. You guys ready? I think I'm ready. We're live, I'm guessing. I'm hoping we're live. What's up, everybody? My name is Indy, and the gentleman right next to me is Mr. Jay Powell from Powell Group Consulting, and welcome to Indie Game Business. We have our repeat guest. How many times have you been on? It's Corey Trese from the Trese brothers. How many times?
No, it's Trese.
It's Tracy. You guys are both wrong. It's Tracy. You're so close, though.
Corey
and
Tracy.
I think I've been on this. I think is my third time.
It is your third time. You either are tied.
I just went by what Jay said. Trese.
Well, I knew.
Great. I actually like Trese. I think maybe we should go with Trese because that feels like really kind of
exotic.
Suave, exotic. Yeah, it does.
My name is Corey Trese.
You know,
I am Corey Trese. Yeah.
You killed my father.
Yeah. I'm prepared to die.
Yeah. That's funny.
Killed my review scores.
I'm trying to take notes and be professional here.
You gave me a bad review on Steam. Prepare to die.
Prepare to join our community. We will convert you.
Can we post that to the guy who gave a bad review to Star Traders after he spent like 500 hours in it or something like that?
You know, those guys are great. The one is ironic. The one he just drifted away from the game and decided he didn't like it.
500 fucking hours.
I don't remember how much it was, but yeah, it was one of those ridiculous ones. It wasn't like I played this for 2 hours and didn't like it. It's like he had played it a lot and then gone.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with our Steam reviews. There's actually a site that will analyze the Steam. It downloads all the Steam reviews and gives you the percentage of positives and negatives by how many hours have been played. So you can see, like, Star Traders, if you only play it for 30 minutes, you're much less, our review rating's very low. It's like in the 60% positive if you played for 30 minutes or less.
Right.
You know, and then you get up to 500 hours and it's like 98% positive, except for those like two people.
Wait, so for the viewer's sake, what's that site?
I will have to find it. It's on my Twitter. I'll find it at some point and send you a link.
I just like, if you're going to play something for 500 hours and then hate it, like, I like to stab myself in the arm with pens, you know, over and over again. What's up? Welcome, people from LinkedIn and Facebook. How's it going? Look at that. Hey, LinkedIn's working. I like it.
Now that we figured out I don't know if I mentioned it last show, but as we were live and I thanked the guy over at Restream profusely, and I was like, we've been trying to get this like straight for months, and he's like, don't worry, they only told us what the issue was like last week, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't feel nearly.
I want all my money back.
Yeah, really. I don't think that's going to happen. So anyway, we are here live with Corey, and by popular demand on our Discord server, which is, discord.gg at Indie Game Business, we're talking about community building. And so why do we have Corey? Well, because his games, their Discord server is, like you said, over 4,000 people with like 1,500 on at any given time. All of their Kickstarters get funded. The last one was funded like within hours or a couple of days, right?
Yeah, 10 hours. Yeah,
10 hours.
Funded pretty quick. And we ended up with 5,000 backers, which was our biggest community on Kickstarter yet.
And most importantly, nearly $250,000.
Yep.
So, they know a little about community building. So we've got questions coming in from our Discord server. If you're out there on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn or Mixer or Twitch, wherever you are, if you've got a question, post it in chat. Our handy dandy little Restream bot will show it to us no matter where you are, and we'll get it answered live on the show. So, I'm going to skip the whole how'd you get in the industry thing, because like you said, you've been on the show 3 times now, which is either
heard that story. It's boring.
Yeah. It's like, we don't care anymore, Corey. I think you're at least tied for, if not now, leading the recurring guest list. It's either that Heine or Chris Zukowski, which basically all comes down to marketing. So that's interesting in and of itself. So let's do this. Give us an overview of your community, how, and then we'll get into how you grow it and manage it and all that kind of good stuff. But what platforms do you focus on for your community?
Well, the community that we are building as a game studio is always focused around the games. So there's core platforms that are tightly integrated with the people that are playing the games. And then there's sort of secondary platforms for people that are interested in the studio. So I would say that the number one most integrated place that our community develops is the Steam forums. Steam forums are really critical for user feedback, for identifying people that are really passionate about the game, collecting guides, encouraging people that are playing the game to join our other platforms, like these secondary platforms. People that are beyond just posting stuff about the game will join our Discord or our official forum. And those are the two primary places that we collect players talking about our games to us. Then there's some other platforms where it's mostly us talking to players. There's less dialogue coming back, like Twitter, YouTube, places where you're sort of pushing content out. That sort of tends to be the outer layer of the community. So that's sort of how I think about it. Like the games at the center, and then wrapped around that are the community resources that are popular with your community. And different games and different groups will have different things. Like if you were running a community in China, maybe instead of Discord, you'd have WeChat. But you would still have things that are directly wrapped around the game where your players are tending to focus, and then other stuff outside of that where you're trying to find new people by pushing content out. So that's sort of how I view it.
That's, and right before we went live, we were talking about forums and how Discord is replacing a lot of forums. The Steam forums is one that even as a gamer, I don't usually think about. So, I mean, granted, if I'm searching for something on a guide or something along those lines, those usually pop up. But it's not something I usually think about in terms of, oh, let me go see what's going on the Steam forums. So I'm assuming, you want to get that Steam page up as soon as possible so you can get the forums up and going as soon as possible, and then push everybody everywhere else.
And so for us, like, one of the rules is the closer that thing is to the game, the more real time your response needs to be. So the Steam forum and the reviews are the two places that users can actually talk to you right in their game client. And so those we try to respond really, really fast. Like we have a tab open to them all the time.
And as you can see from Corey's, desktop, he has plenty of room to have plenty of tabs open and, land the SpaceX rockets and do whatever else.
I loved watching that launch. The SpaceX launch was actually.
Hey, did you see there's a web browser game that is it's a simulation of the docking not to totally go off the rails, but it's docking the SpaceX onto the International Space Station. It's like a web-based game. I died the first time, but the second time I did pretty good.
That's awesome.
I'll find that link.
I saw that they did that, and SpaceX did it themselves or something. I'm as much of a NASA geek and astronomy geek as I am. It's like I'm even afraid to try Kerbal because it's like that looks like it has math in it, and me and math don't get along. That's just the reality of it. So it just, despite looking at the system, and I'm like, yeah, of course you have 40 different tabs open, but how do you find the time to do all this, Corey? Managing a community and answering Steam forums and on your Reddit, you're extremely, not vocal, like bad, but I mean, you get back to folks and respond really quickly. How do you manage that with everything else that you've got to do?
I think part of it is that you have to compartmentalize it. That works for me. Everyone has a different strategy. What works for me is breaking it into chunks and doing as quickly as I can, like 20 Reddit responses or 20 forum posts. Discord is the challenge because it tends to be real time, and if you let it, you can sit there all day. You can not program at all. Like I've lost days to Discord, down the Discord rabbit hole. But for me, what works is kind of time boxing it, saying like, I'm going to work on Reddit for 20 minutes, so I need to get everything done in 20 minutes. And part of what works for us is being really authentic, so that I don't have to write I don't have to spend a whole lot of time with the threads. I can write sort of off the cuff and just be really authentic and direct, and it tends to be pretty easy because I'm not trying to. There's not a lot of flowery language or introductions or anything. Not trying to be too official.
So do you do that like once a day, or do you do it once a week, or
a couple of times a day?
How many hours are in your day, Corey?
It varies a lot, but game development, running your own studio, it can be one of those things where like you can work too much overtime. So everyone's got to do their own work-life balance, but and I think it is important to pick your battles. And as you look at that like layering concept of what's really important, like if I didn't do any Twitter and we didn't post any YouTubes, I don't think our sales would change. Like those are nice to haves and they're sort of good for your, your ego or whatever, but your like studio's presence. People will like acknowledge that you're a real studio or whatever. But the most important thing is the people playing the game. So, if I had a little less time, I would just cut Twitter and I would cut YouTube, and I would cut back a little bit on extraneous Discord chats and lobby, and I'd focus more on just responding to pings. It's a balancing act.
No, I think your sales would change. How much they would change would be different, but especially the fact that you're on your third game now.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, you got more than that, but in terms of the more recent ones, you've got that reputation, and it does help. How much it would help on your very first one, I don't know, but
I think Twitter doesn't help you very much in your first one, because if you have 16 Twitter followers and you're putting 4 hours a week into sending out Twitter content. Like you have to get your first game out, your second game out. Then, it's because it's that layering process. Like you won't need a Discord until you have a game. Once you have a game, you need a Discord. When you have like a couple of games and your Discord's busy, now you need a Twitter to like send the funny memes your Discord is making out. Like that's half of our Twitter feed probably is like, hey, look at this stuff they said on Discord, Twitter. Look at this post, Twitter. So I think you can get yourself wrapped around the wheel trying to build all of your community sites before there's people there. You want to build them just before people need them.
So is there, if we had a flow chart in how you pipe that funnel, how you direct people to different places, how would it look?
It would really be about getting them into the game first and foremost. So getting them to play the game, because I'm not interesting. Andrew's certainly very interesting, but we can't build a community around just Andrew. So really it's the game. Like we're not personalities that people join the community to follow. So we have to get them, like no one comes to our Twitter and is like, I want to join this Discord. These guys seem cool.
But they do. But that's what I'm saying. They do that.
A tiny fraction of them do. I'm not worried about those people. And I think they're weird. I am focused on the people that play the game and go, I have questions about this, or I have an idea, or I really like this. I want to tell someone about how awesome my bounty hunter is. That's the person that I really want the community to be there ready to catch her or him when they're like, hey, I just made this amazing thing with this game. I want to show it to someone. That's where the community is amazing, right? That's where you can step out of the game and go, I am so happy with what I just did in this game. Look, and people will go, awesome. Like, here's my bounty hunter. Yours is great. Like, how did you do that? Like, that's the experience that you can give a player that instantly cements them into the community. Like, they come out of the game, they have something they're really happy about, and they're wherever they go, there's happy, positive people that can, encourage them to keep playing. And at first, it's you. At first, when there's no other players, it has to be you. It's like the dev. You show up and you're like, I love your bounty hunter. That's amazing. Like, that's the best one ever. Like, you get to be a moderator or whatever. But at the beginning, it's you, and eventually, it's other people, and it self-powers. But it doesn't happen without work. It doesn't happen maybe somebody has it happen magically, but for us, it took a lot of work. And Andrew has 30,000 Steam forum posts, and I have 29,000 forum posts, and Andrew has, 40,000 forum posts. There's hundreds of thousands of posts that we've made over the last, 10 years that underpin all of that community work. So.
Well, it establishes you as a developer that gives a shit, and that is important. And then as you're building that community, and yeah, I get it. I know back in the day, I was much more involved in the actual developing of the game, and when they came out, I was so proud. It's like my dog was in one of the games, and it was. And then I got old and cynical, and now I don't do that much in depth anymore. I focus more on the business side. But whether you realize it or not, all of those things that you're doing are contributing to the bottom line and the marketing. You're building that brand of I'm just going to take it completely off and go the Trese brothers, and I think we should just call it something different every single time. But building that brand and getting somebody interested, I would much rather be involved in a project and playing a game that I knew developers were listening. And when I first met you two, that was what completely took me by surprise. It's like if somebody posted in Reddit, it's like, I don't understand why I keep getting killed by the Xeno. Here's my ship. And it's like, you and Andrew were the ones popping in going, oh, well, that's because you took out all your weapons and you're just trying to basically kamikaze every Xeno ship. And it is that sort of your brand building that makes it important, especially since you've been doing this for 10 years. I mean, all that stuff snowballs. So, so from we got
and I think it's like it's easy to look at where we are and go, that's like, how did they get there? But it's really like you start with a game and you start with a thread and you respond like, I keep dying. And sometimes it's, yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. That's broken. I'm going to increase the hit points on that. The update will be out on Tuesday. That's really powerful. Like just admitting, and that's an easy Reddit thread. You're like, yep, I'm wrong, fixing. Takes 5 seconds.
Do I get credit for the idea to implement the scanners in the ships if you're the pirate, so I could see what was in there? Because I remember I had that idea and I posted it, and then it made it to the game. So
it's a popular talent.
Yeah, no, you're going to get your dog in the game, Jay.
It wasn't popular. It was just me, Corey.
You're going to get your dog in the game. That's your reward.
The talent itself is popular. People level into it a lot. Because it avoids fighting. You can avoid fighting, pointless fights.
So let's see. Got a question on Discord. Gabriel wants to know, how do you find that first fan in a forum, Twitter, an Ithio demo page, Steam demo page? Where do you start from square one?
Well, I think, it's amazing today that you can put out games for really a minimal investment. Now, I understand that there is, $100 for Steam and $25. It is money, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a minimal amount of money. You can, back in the day, Greenlight cost a lot to get the votes, like to actually buy the ads and market it and blah, blah, blah. Like it wasn't free, for most people. And before that, you had to pay a phenomenal amount of money to get a publisher to look at your stuff. Like you had to show up with a big pile of cash.
Stupid consultants.
So today, today it's relatively affordable. I would say that the first fan is someone that plays your game. And that there's a difficult gap between like the very beginning and having a game that people can like. That's the real test. You got to make that first game. But get it to a point where somebody can play it. I really tend to advise people to focus on core markets where players play, not devs. So like Steam, Google Play, App Store, those are places that you're going to find people who you can convert into fans, because there's so many people on Steam that are just wandering around looking for the game they want to play. And some of them are looking for Star Traders, and a bunch of them are looking for your game. It's just not there yet. So
before you've got that game for them to play, what do you do?
I mean, I would say post screenshots. You make that Steam page and you respond to like even before the game, you can start practicing. You won't have a lot of threads. Like we have a Cyber Knights page that has threads. We respond to them. We're like, here's when the game's coming out. We post screenshots, news items, because we're trying to collect wish lists. So I think you start with that inner core. Like, what's the closest thing to the game? It's the Steam page, the Google Play page, the iOS page, those coming soon pages. You make those, and then you pick, it's either an official forum or a Discord, maybe both. You set those up, and you try and collect fans. But you're not those people are going to be very rare, and you can't get distressed if you don't have a lot of them. Because like if it's your first game, you don't have the thing, right? You don't have the game. So you just got to get that first game out there. Like our first game was real bad.
So once you've got that first one, and this one's from Roberto on the Discord as well, how do you keep up a good pace and maintain the following, as you're in that design stage and initial demo and that sort of stuff? Is it just a matter of constantly paying attention and responding, or is there more to it?
Well, for me, I always advise game developers to build games with a plan. It's like when you build a house. If you build a house and you know that you're never going to add anything to it, you build it a certain way. But if somebody said, hey, I want to build a house, and like in 2 years, I'm going to add a whole wing on the back, and I'm going to add a second story. The person building the house is going to go, that's really weird, but I'm going to build a very different structure since that's your plan. So in that analogy, you're thinking down the road, like, I'm going to be adding this. And if you build a game that's sort of like finished and then launch it, it's harder to build a community. Because you need things that the community can ask for and that you can deliver, and that they can ask you to expand and you can expand. So I think one of the things that's important as you're kind of in that, like you said, in that process of getting the game out and responding to your first fans, that you've built a game that can grow. Like it's not like if you build and launch Tic-Tac-Toe, something like that, that's really a finished, sealed game. It's much harder to build a community around it because they can't give you much feedback. They can't say like, I mean, maybe they can. Maybe they could come up with something. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's, and we constantly compare building a game to building a house, because it's, the usual comparison is if you don't have that foundation right at the beginning, then the whole house is going to fall over anyway. But that's a nice addition, pun intended, to
what
that.
What was Roberto's question again? Sorry.
How do you keep up the pace?
How do you keep up the pace? So I think to answer that specifically, it's have a plan so you can do lots of small updates that make sense. and can make people feel like you are always making progress, even if it's little chunks. That you have a plan, like it's a game where you can add one level a week or something. Like if it's a platformer, you can add that, or you can add a new weapon type regularly, something like that, where you can, and then people can make suggestions, and you can do that for that week. So the pacing, I think, is about planning ahead for it.
So do you think that, I mean, the whole adding a new level or a new something every week is interesting. Do you think that is what contributed to, and this is really going to be out of right field, do you think that's what contributed to Fortnite exploding on like it has?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of factors. I think that it was a constantly evolving game that they were really tuning. I think had a lot to do with it. Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that always jumps out to me, is they're constantly having something new. There's constantly something to talk about. It's like you said last time, when you're launching multiple iterations, multiple versions of the game on platforms, instead of launching them all at once, you're launching them, PC first and then iPad or iOS later, and then that sort. So you're spacing it out to keep it interesting. It's kind of the same thing. You just have to have a much more rapid pace at the beginning than you do, once everything's live.
And it keeps people coming back, like people that have maybe they played for a while and then they left. They can come back when there's a big event, and those people can be really helpful for your community and your player counts and stuff.
So before we went live, we were talking about the shift from forums to Discord. You've been doing this for 10 years and building the community for 10 years. How has it changed in that time frame? And then more specifically, how has Discord changed the game itself?
Yeah, so I think over the time that we've been doing it, communication has gotten more and more real time. People have wanted more and more direct communication, and I think Discord is sort of a culmination of that, in that our community is now really chat focused. When we started, it was much more threaded, posted, threading and posting. And I think there's some inherent challenges there as you build a community, because Discord is very demanding, being real time. It's like always on, like a forum thread that gets responded to in 6 hours. Like every thread gets responded to in 6 hours. People would say like, that's amazing, but if everyone has to wait for 6 hours for a response on Discord, they might feel like it's too slow. So I think there's been a change there. Yep. I think they can work together. I think the right strategy is to find a way for them to coexist and increase each other's ability to add value for your studio. The forum does really well for like capturing data that you want to come back to, or holding bug reports that you need a URL for, so that you can like have a link, be like, what was wrong with that? Oh yeah, that. Because Discord stuff, right, it just zooms by, and you can lose it pretty easily.
Is there a way to, and this gets back to the bot thing that we were talking about earlier, good bots, not bad bots. Is there a way you can integrate your Steam forum posts into Discord? I know you can do it with Reddit, but is there a way to do it with Steam to try to, like, for lack of a better word, cross-market those two platforms?
That's interesting. I haven't seen anything that does that, but that's a really good question. I wonder if that's a cool idea. I don't think it would be that hard technically. Like the bot wouldn't have that much work to do. It's just really monitoring that feed, and then creating a message for each embed message for each entry in the feed.
See, there, I went and just sucked out some of the hours of your day while you try to wrap your head around that and figure it out.
That's okay. I actually really enjoy writing Discord bots.
Good.
I've had a lot of fun building the ones that we use on our server.
You can get to work on some for ours. That would be awesome. So let's talk about that for a second. So, how do you use bots? I mean, you got 4,000 people on the server. You've got multiple games that you've got channels for 1,500 people on there at any given time. How do you use the bots? I mean, do you create all of them yourself? What do they do? Are there any?
We don't create them all ourselves now. Okay, so a couple of them I made. A couple of them are off the shelf. We've got Nightbot and MeBot, which are basically, so you want to have a command bot that can do like basic things. So I think that's the foundational thing. That's like, what's the forum's address? Exclamation point forum, exclamation point YouTube, exclamation point Twitter, whatever. So that you want your Discord to be anybody that's in the Discord, you want them to have easy, frictionless access to all your other properties. So you want to give them links to your storefront so they can buy all your other games, because that's awesome. And you want them to go and integrate with your, with whatever web properties they're interested in. So I think that's really where you start with your Discord bot, is something that can do commands and give out links. And then there's some more advanced things beyond that. Like you were talking about syndicating, what were you talking about? Syndicating Reddit posts? RSS feeds.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Whatever forum or whatever feeds that are valuable to your community. If it's like you said, Steam posts would be awesome. I don't know if there's bots that do it, but we should make one. But Reddit threads, like our Discord has a channel that's like Reddit posts, so people can see what's going on Reddit. And that's one of the ways that I stay on top of our Reddit, is that I watch that channel. And that helps me. Like, I don't have to have a tab open to Reddit. I just see a Discord message come in when there's a post on there, and I can go respond to it. So that's, I think, really valuable. And that's like bringing more data into your Discord. So the bot holds a bunch of static data, like links that he can share. And then you have another bot that brings dynamic data in, that provides data for your users to consume, like Reddit links or Twitter posts or whatever. And then above that, you've got bots that do very specific stuff. Like we have a bot that manages Kickstarter reward tiers. So that's totally custom. It can assign roles. But totally custom it's pretty simple. Like there's good tutorials out there how to build your first Discord bot. It's not very difficult. It's not particularly intimidating. Use JavaScript. And there's lots of tutorials like that give you half the bot or 90% of the bot basically in the tutorial. You just have to configure it, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with that. You can monitor messages. You can help your moderators. You can like our thing does all those Kickstarter rewards. So it's got a list of the Kickstarter Discord usernames. So if you join and you're a Kickstarter backer, you get your roles automatically. And that's really important for us because our community has gotten to the point where we can't do it by hand. Last time we did it all by hand. This time we couldn't. Too many people. So that's sort of that on-demand thing. You don't need a bot that manages all that. If you have just released one game and you're working on your first 100 fans or your first 1,000 fans or whatever. But then later you might. So you don't want to invest too much time worrying about it early on. So I would say, think about that data flow. The bot's got some data. You get another bot that can bring some data in once there's data to bring in. You don't want to rig up Reddit till somebody's posting on Reddit. I don't know.
No, I mean, but that's it. Because it is all about, you have to manage your time, and so,
yeah.
being able to figure out what's working and what's not working and what's yielding benefits and what isn't, that's an absolute key to it, because it's like, I run a small business too, and so every hour in the day that you're not doing one thing is an hour that you can be doing something else.
Yeah,
So
because you should be working. I mean, in this business, you better be working on a game. Like, you better be this thing, Visual Studio or whatever it is, like game, because that's the important thing. Like Discord bots and all that stuff. It's the game and the players. It's so easy to get distracted with other stuff.
All right, so get distracted with other stuff like other stores. And this is something that you and I and Andrew talked about a year or two ago when we were, working with you all like formally. And I'm always of the opinion, it's like, you need to be on every store. But you brought up a good point in that every different store out there is going to have a different set of needs and issues and bugs, and community management is a part of that. So when you're focusing all of your efforts at Steam, then it gives you, that one pipeline of feedback in the Steam forums that you have to worry about, not, what's going on at GOG or Green Man or Itch or anything like that. How do you manage it as that community grows? You've obviously had people in your Discord and in your community, step up and take on higher roles. How do you find the right people to do that? How do you give them, how much power should you give them? How do you approach that? When it comes time to start handing out mod roles or something else along those lines?
Well, we have, moderation selection is a very tricky, it's tricky, right? It's not easy. And if you mess it up, it can go very bad. I won't lie. I have a couple of principles that I tend to stick to. And if some of my mods are on here, I'm sorry, facts of life. But it is we call you, you don't call us arrangement. When people ask to be mods, I tend to put them on a list of never going to be a mod. Because there's a certain amount of power that you're giving a mod, and in our community it's a lot of power. They can ban, they can kick. I don't tend to review a whole lot of what they're doing unless somebody complains. My DMs are open. I've never had a complaint about our moderation team, like one or two crazy people, but I think it's a tricky selection. I think it's something that you want to pick, and I think it starts with how you treat your community, right? Because the people that stand up as leaders are going to do so because they like the way the community is being run, and they're going to emulate your behavior. So if you're sharp and sarcastic and dismissive, then you're going to end up with the leaders of your community being sharp, sarcastic, and dismissive. That's just how, that's just how these things tend to form. If you are generous and, easygoing and slow to get frustrated, those are the kind of people that are going to stick around and become leaders in your community. And they're going to see your behavior and like it, and that's fine. If you're sharp and sarcastic, and that's, there's people that'll like that too. But the mods you find will emulate your behavior. So I think it starts with you as a developer in your community. And the people that tend to stick around long enough that you trust them enough to promote them to moderator and convince them. Because some of our mods, I had to sell them on it. They weren't necessarily first round. Yes, I would. I want a mod. I'm super excited. So some of it is recruiting. The people that will do a good job, even if they're now you can't push them too much. I've had people say nope, not interested, and you find somewhere else for them to fit in because they're a good egg, right? Maybe they're in charge of your wiki now. They moderate the wiki instead of the Discord. They're not into Discord moderation or forum moderation, but they love running the wiki. So you find, when you're recruiting people, you have to respect what they're saying about what they want to contribute, but still try and find a way that they can be an important part of the community.
So what happens when that goes wrong? How do you de-escalate people?
When it goes wrong, I think you have to really stick to your guns. You have to be thorough and don't jump to conclusions, but you have to really, and some stuff is like when trust is broken, you have to remind yourself, this is business. Like, this is like, there's a friendship here, but it is still business. There's a business contract implied, and this is my office. Like, this Discord is my office. You are in my lobby shouting insane things at each other. Right? That's how I think of it. Like, if this is my office building and you guys are, I don't know, you've got a visitor and my head security guard, and I can't even hear the things they're saying, like, you're all fired. You're out. So I think you have to remind yourself, like, yeah, it's a Discord, but this is your workplace. Like, this isn't just like a gaming community. It is for some people. It's just one of the 100 of gaming communities they're in. But for you, this is your office. Like, you can't have an attitude or an air or an atmosphere of chaos in your lobby. Like, customers are going to walk in here. So I think when it goes wrong, you have to act, you have to be careful. You have to act not slowly, but you have to act cautiously and with purpose. But when time comes for decisions, you have to make them about the business rather than about friendships or who started what. Like, if you violated the rules, you violated the rules. If it's a bannable offense, you're banned, mod or otherwise.
Bring down that hammer. Bam.
Sometimes you have to.
Is it necessary to put all of those rules out there at first, or is it one of those that, okay, we're going to see where this Discord goes, and then when something gets out of line, then we'll make the rule?
I think very much you set the example, right? You set the example of what content you accept. People will look at who's there to sort of read the room. Smart people will, at least. There's always some crazies. You just accept that. But I think, I think it depends on the platform. In general, I think you have to write the rules. And some places explicitly require it for you to apply for their partnership or whatever. Like Discord, if you want to be a verified Discord or a partner Discord server, you have to have a code of conduct, you have to have official rules, etc. They have to approve them. So I do. I think sometimes you got to write it down because otherwise it can be tough to enforce. But it doesn't have to be crazy list of like what topics are allowed. You're like, I don't know. Ours are pretty simple. No harassment, no hate speech. Don't advertise stuff. Don't reveal private information.
I think ours just says don't be a dick.
Don't argue with the moderators.
Don't argue in the lobby of our business. People can't hear anything.
I always like don't do something I don't want you to do because I'll ban you. What is that? I don't do something and find out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And early on, right? Like that's, I think it's so much about your conduct, right? If you're posting inappropriate memes and cursing about like other developers, then your community is going to be like out of control from day one. But if you're in there like towing the line, being a professional, treating it like your office, what kind of posters do you hang up in your lap? Like, is it offensive memes or is it like, the flag of your country? So, I don't know. I think it all starts
or
like
both, right?
Maybe it's both, yeah. And it depends on what kind of community you're trying to build. We're trying to build a community that's long-term supportable and welcoming to players so that they can show up with their bounty hunter and be welcomed and feel respected. So that's what we're going for.
So we had another. In the meantime, there's a question on LinkedIn. Do you use a KVM?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just two graphics cards, and each graphics card has 3 monitors on it.
So when you've got a good amount of people on your Discord, in your Steam forums, on your Reddit page, how do you keep them active? What do you do to spur that conversation, or to keep? I mean, we're all on like 50 Discords at this point. And so how do you keep your Discord from being that one that people just like completely mute instead of like getting rid of it?
Well, I think for us, it comes back to the games. You keep the Reddit posts flowing by making adjustments and expanding the game. You've had this plan, you've been executing it, you are continuing to add levels and weapons and skins, whatever Fortnite was doing, right? You just keep cranking out the content. You had a plan, and Fortnite clearly had a plan, right? They were like, we're going to do this, and we're going to have more guns, and we're going to add events, and we're going to do skins, and there'll be hats, and I don't know, whatever else they had. But they had, and they have buckets where they can just be like, there's 20 new X's. And Star Traders has those too, right? There's fighters, there's ships, there's crew weapons, there's crew armor, there's crew gear, there's ship components, there's ship weapons, there's explorer cards, there's orbital cards, there's spy cards, there's salvage cards. Like there's so many things. We call them catalogs internally in the design. So we like to have a game that has a set number of catalogs that are available. And those are things that are designed to blow out. Skins are a great example. If you said like, 100 releases from now, we'd have 500 more of any of the catalogs. I'd be like, yeah, the game's going to be fine. That's cool. Because they're really designed to scale like that content. So if you have things like that, that's a way to keep everybody talking. New skins. People are posting, hey, and I'm sure this is how Fortnite works. They release a bunch of skins. All the people that play the game post pictures of themselves with the skin, or they post about how they don't like the skin, or whatever. They post something. And then the developers, I'm certain the Fortnite developers are on there, and they're like, hey, that's a great post. I love your bounty hunter.
With them, they do a lot of their strategy comes down to that fear of missing out. It's like when you all add new catalog items, those catalog items are always there. You're not popping in and going, hey, give us an extra $3 and you can have access to this ship. But that's what they do. That the store.
Yeah, they're real pros, dude. I'm down here in the, just making a little bit of money. I'm not trying to make a mountain.
I think they passed a mountain. But I mean, that's one of the things that, we on the free-to-play model as it evolved out of mobile into PC and console, one of the things that would constantly come up is, okay, you have to have limited timed things. So it taps into that whole fear of missing out. And that's what, that's what gets them and spurs these sales. And I know it because I have an 8-year-old who turns around every day and is like, oh, this thing is on the V Shop and I want it. It's the best thing ever. And I'm like, yes, and you're going to tell me the next day that it's the best thing ever, whatever they have on that side. What you all are doing is different. You've still got that same content pipeline, those catalog items, but they're there forever. You're making the game bigger all the time. They're just making the game different.
It'd be like if Fortnite just like kept adding the skins, but you could always unlock them by winning a game. Like always get to pick a skin when you won, and they're like, there's 1,000 skins, and you'd be like, I'll never unlock them. But it's different.
And then those people would play, because we see that every time that Overwatch or what's the
Overwatch.
The Battlefields or whatever. Overwatch, every single time they do a holiday event, limited time event or whatever, you can count to 5 from the time it launches before the Reddit thread pops up about how there's absolutely no time to in this event to unlock every single thing. And it's like, that's not the point. The point is not to unlock every single thing. The point is to get the things that you want, and that's different. But to take what you're saying with the catalog and translate it into marketing, you basically have a content pipeline, and you're slowly rolling out that content to keep the game updated and interesting and expanding, because the reality is the longer people are playing that game, the more they're going to talk about it, the more that they're going to, when their friends go, hey, what are you playing? And it's like, well, I'm playing Star Traders. And it's like, well, the game came out like a year or two ago. And he's like, yeah, but go to the Steam page, you'll see that, Corey and Edgar and the team have done like 100, 200 updates to this thing. And so it's in many ways, so to completely close the loop on this, you keep your server active and you keep your game active by treating content in the game just like a content marketing, just like a marketing plan in general. And for developers out there, if you're not doing this, you should. I mean, you can go places like, I think HubSpot has one, and it's just, look at a content marketing calendar, and they have a spreadsheet that basically outlines, and it's very generic. It's not like geared to games or anything like that, but it gives you an idea. It's like, okay, on Monday, we're going to do a tweet about this, and on Wednesday, we're going to release this item or whatever it will be. And then on Friday, we're going to do an AMA on Reddit. And you really need to sit down and blend those things together, because if you don't have the content, you can't, tweet about it, write about it, whatever you're going to do. So, that your catalog system is dead on. And the beauty of it is, I'm going to assume that outside of balance issues, adding a new card to the Explorer minigame or to the Scavenger minigame, it isn't a arduous process.
Right. It's relatively low cost, especially if you have sort of thought ahead of time about the fact that you're going to want to add. When I wrote the code for the card system, I was like, yeah, I'm going to add 150 of these. So don't make this thing crappy, right? I'm going to be in here adding these. So make it adding stuff friendly. So when you think about it from a design standpoint, a balance standpoint, you really want to say, this is a catalog implementation. This is part of the long-term scalability of this game's support lifecycle. So make it maintenance friendly, make it easy to add to. So yeah, it isn't. It's not high cost at all. Especially now, the cost has gone down, as we've gotten better and better at implementing that plugin component, and then we've built more and more pieces that you can just snap together to make a new card. It's like, A piece and D and M piece have never gone together, so it's A and M, now it's a new card. So you can really think about that early on in the game, how that's going to be part of the long-term life cycle. And you can't say Star Trader, certainly, I'm not saying that it survives on only catalog updates. Like your calendar, you're like, we're going to add 2 catalog updates and a feature. So that feature's the high-cost item. The 2 catalog updates are pretty low cost. You balance test, and that sort of comes together as a release with a couple of bug fixes and crashes. So and then you put that on your calendar and you tweet about it. You put a little thing on Discord and post on Reddit, and that fills up your week. And that's
it's easy. It's just, see how easy that is? It's just absolutely simple and easy. Why should everybody be doing it?
And what we talk about is cadence. So early in the cycle of Star Traders coming out, our cadence is much more aggressive. We're doing many releases, multiple features a release. All the catalogs are getting hit, and we're pushing out a lot more content. As you shift into a cadence where the second game is coming online, we talked about this a little bit. Okay, so you got your first game, your community's starting to grow. How do you keep them happy while you build the second game or the third or the fifth game? What are you doing? And what you're doing is you're putting that game into a maintenance cadence where you've set it up for success with its early aggressive update cycle. The catalogs are mature. You know which ones are fun. You know what the players are interested in, and you can keep your community going forward while you build Cyber Knights. So we keep, we just did another really, I think, awesome update to Star Traders that got our player counts up over, back up over our 30-day and 90-day highs. So that was a good success for us, but I'm working on Cyber Knights because we have this cadence. That update was relatively low cost. We used the tools we had available to drive success for it. But meanwhile, I'm working on Cyber Knight, and so is Andrew. So
you brought up a good point there. How do you accurately measure whether or not what you're doing on the content marketing side is working?
You have to use a computer system to measure it.
Can you be a little more specific?
You have to have analytics. I've talked to developers that don't use analytics, that you can just kind of guess. It's hopeless. You cannot guess. You will never guess what these people are doing in your game. You have to use analytics. Google Analytics is an option. Firebase Analytics is an option. GameAnalytics.com is a great choice. There are others. There's a Magic Quadrant you can look at that has like 10 game analytics options. But analytics is super, super important. Like I can't stress enough how crucially important that is to your long-term catalog strategy as well. Because if you're putting things in catalogs that nobody ever buys, you are not winning, right? They will... The players will post about the stuff they use. So if you're doing updates that are adding content like skins that no one ever puts on, it's not going to keep your community going, right? So you have to know what people are using so you can make more of it, so they'll keep using it, so they'll post about it. And so Google Analytics, all you have to do is set up, and it can be very basic. But yeah, game analytics is super important. Depending on your game, it can tell you all of the most important things that you will ever need to know.
So you've got it built in there, so when people are playing. And let's, for those of you out there who don't know the game, this is not a online multiplayer free-to-play game where you always think about that's where analytics is. This is a offline single-player premium. You're not going back and buying, this isn't the free-to-play model, but you've got systems in the analytics for your game, so when you put a piece of content out there and then you tweet about it and you write about it, you've got a standard set of things that you do when a new catalog item comes out, and you can tell whether or not people are using it and how often it's getting used. I mean, how deep do the analytics go?
Yeah, they go pretty deep. We want to be able to know catalog item success. And we also want to know design failure points. So those are the two things we're trying to track: the success of the catalog items and the places where the design is failing. For your game, the design failure may look different. For Star Traders, it's people dying at time they shouldn't have died.
Those are all my entry points. I'm sorry about that.
That's fine. And we've been trying to sort you out, but unfortunately, single player game, I can't just give you the wins or make you fight bots or whatever. You're going to have to solve it yourself. But the analytics can tell you those two things, right? Like, I just added a sword. Is anyone using it? I just added this talent that lets you scan smugglers to see what they're holding. Is it popular? And a week later, you're like, oh yeah. Like 20% of players have already bought this talent and they've used it. Like this is a hit. Like it's a guaranteed hit. And like I can predict often, not every time, but I can predict what the threads on Reddit are going to be about when we have a big update, because I see what people are doing, right? Like I can see it building in the community, in the data, and it will come out somewhere on the forum or something. So you really want to look at popularity and where are people dying. Like if I was making a platformer and I knew exactly where people died, like the XY coordinate, and that's all I'd send to Google Analytics. Player died XY. And then I would make a little view in Unity that was like, show me a red dot for every player that died. And I'd look at this map and I'd be like, oh my goodness, this little cliff right here is just reaping souls, and that's a frustration point that you can figure out. Is there a missing warning? Is that cliff a little too wide? Like you might not know why people are all dying on level 3. You play through it, you never even go down there because you've played this level so many times, you always go up over. But like your first time players, they like go down for some reason and fall in this cliff. And they do it like 3 times in a row sometimes. And so you can fix that level. Like that's just an example, but analytics can tell you so much about player behavior that you'll never guess as the developer or even your QA team, because you guys have played it so much. Like by the time it's like, out there, I've played thousands of hours of Star Traders. Like I play it the way I play it. That's great for some things, but it doesn't tell me much about how a new player plays the game.
As somebody who has helped ship hundreds of games over the years, I can't tell you how much I admire the fact that you have created something that by the time you're done, you're not almost sick of. I mean, because you are so involved in it that it's hard to be objective, and you just looked at it for so long and so long and so long. I mean, I see a lot of developers, get that way. Less so now that everything has become basically games as a service, but 10 years ago, it was a real thing. It's like, I mean, you ship a game and then somebody's like, oh, well, sales have justified an expansion pack. And we'd have developers go, God, no, I'm doing something different. I don't want to look at that part anymore. It's it's not the majority of the folks that do that. And I think that's part of what makes y'all's game so awesome, is that you are sitting there playing it all the time. And when somebody expresses frustration with something, on the Twitter or in the Discord or Reddit or wherever, you can go, you know what? I get it. I was playing the other day and I had something like that happen. And, you make a change. I mean, you actually listen. So, kudos for that, dude.
I think we cheated a little bit. Like we make games that we like to play. So there's like, no one's telling us what kind of games to make.
Well, so. I mean, but aside from contract work, that's what a lot of developers do. But it's a matter of, do you love it enough that you really, really want to keep doing it for years? Like, so how many years have you been working from pre-production start? How many years have you been working on Star Traders?
Oh, a while. Like 6 years, probably. That's a good question. It's been some time.
I mean, you see people on, and part of it is they're at a big company and they need a change and they want to go, do their own, have a more agile, smaller indie company. But working on a project, the same game for 6 years, that's a lot. That's one of those things that, it's truly impressive that you don't just completely burn out on it and go, you know what? Fuck it. I'm working on, Cyber Knights and I'm making a turn-based strategy game now. So it is. And that's one of the things that having that openness with your community and also being able to admit when you're wrong. I've seen countless posts from you on Discord or Reddit or even Twitter where somebody brings up something and instead of going, I'm the developer, I'm making the game I want to make, fuck off. You're like, oh, that's a good point. Let me look at that. And then you have those like super fans that are like, oh, well, when I run the data on this and there's blah, 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 and I'm sitting there reading it going, I don't know, did that torpedo blow it up or not? That's kind of like the level I'm at right now. You do have an open dialogue with the community. And I think that's what you have to have. If you are that developer, that your constant feedback to your community is, this is my game. I don't care what you think. that's going to negatively impact all the stuff that you do. And so, I think for a lot of these developers, especially smaller ones, it's a matter of moderating that line.
That ego he's a powerful beast. Like, he wants to be like, no, I'm right. Like, you are wrong, you pathetic player. Like, I am developer. Like, I know. Like, I made this. There's a part of you that always feels that way when you read someone being like, I disagree. You have to like take a step back and be, you got to be in your lobby. You have to think about like, this is just business. Like, how can I turn this disappointed player into a super fan? And sometimes it's really easy. You just say like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to increase the damage on that by 10%. And, maybe that doesn't even fix the balance issue that bothered them, but they're like, holy crap, the developer just read my post and responded like politely and said they would fix it. Like, that's a huge win for people that are used to being ignored. So we started working on Star Traders 2 in late 2013. So
oh my God. 6.5 years.
It's been a journey. We closed the Kickstarter in 2014 and actually started working on the game. So, yep.
Wow. So when you get this feedback in, from the community, how do you draw that line between this is something that the community wants versus this is something that is going to impact the change, the game that we want to make? Because I see it go both ways. For as many teams as I see and community managers or what have you that go, no, that's not how it's going to work. This is our game, and they're very, standoffish against it. You also have a whole lot that try to be people pleasers, that sit back and go, well, let's look at everything that the community says because, if that community wants it, then we need it. And they ignore the possibility, which is usually a reality, of the vocal minority. How do you weigh those conversations?
Yeah, that is a really tricky one. That answer isn't necessarily an easy one to find. I strongly feel that it is a balance. And if you look at my post history, you'll find that I try to strike that balance. Sometimes people need to be told that they are wrong and that they have misunderstood something, or and part of that is the analytics, right? If I'm just Corey, the player of Star Traders, and I'm trying to disagree with you, but when someone comes on is like, this talent is worthless, no one uses it, and I look at the data and I'm like, you sir are incorrect. 21% of players on hard or above will train this at some time in their first 4 games. And, 18% of them will use it more than once in the game that they train it. Therefore, you are wrong. Like, you are perhaps playing on basic and you do not understand this talent. There's so much that the analytics data can tell you that gives you confidence that you're right or wrong. Or someone comes on and goes, this talent is garbage, no one uses it. And you look and you're like, oh, crap. He's right. No one uses that talent. And you can respond like, yes, sir, it is garbage. I am replacing it. And he'll be like, I am a hero, right? And he will be so pleased, or she will be so happy that you took them seriously. But either way, you can say like, well, hold on. Like, I see a lot of people. You don't say you're not playing on the right difficulty. You don't understand. You give them a democratic.
Get good, noob. It's like...
I question your dedication to permadeath, friend. What difficulty level do you play upon? You have to be able to respond to those questions about the game on both sides. Sometimes you're right, sometimes they're right. There's a gray area in the middle. It's not easy to navigate. If you're trying to do it without analytics, you're in trouble. Because your game community can be an echo chamber, right? You're recruiting people that like the game. So someone new comes on with a challenge, maybe they misunderstand it, or they actually see a problem, or whatever. The people that you've gathered around you love the game. So they may not be able to see it either. And they may encourage you if you're like, this is wrong, get good, noob. And people be like, yeah, they need to get good. You're right.
The analytics say you need to get good.
and if the analytics say you need to get good, then it's a great opportunity to figure out why, right? So why are they struggling with this? Is there a missing guide? Is there a missing message? What's leading them astray? And sometimes you'll talk to them and they'll admit, they're like, well, I play this other game and I just play this game the same way I play that other game. Like I always use only missiles. And you're like, well, that's not a good strategy in this game. They're like, but in this other game, I love only missiles. And you're like, okay, but try like not only missiles. And then they're like, okay, it works. So I think you can figure out the right way to respond to them, but I think it's a balance because if you listen all the time, you'll ruin your game. If you never listen, your community will not be happy and they'll leave, or there won't be anything going on and it won't be fun. So you want it to be fun, and part of the fun of being involved in a game dev community is being taken seriously and seeing your feedback or the girl next to you or the guy next to you, their feedback in the game. Because then you feel like you're contributing, you're part of it, you take ownership of it. So, I think it's a tough balance, and I think analytics help a ton. Inform you when you're actually right and when you're wrong.
I mean, case in point on that is, these games that come out and they do poorly, and, Fallout 76 is an example. You have all the folks online in this big vocal, whether minority or not, saying, this game is trash and nobody's buying it and nobody's playing it, and therefore Bethesda's going to, cancel it. And I look at it and go, they're the ones with the analytics, and they're the ones, whether or not you say no one is playing it makes no difference, because they're the ones looking at it and going, okay, people are playing this. And those are the games that end up sustaining and living. Somebody had an article the other day about Crucible from Amazon, and it was like, can this game survive after they dropped 5 years and $250 million or however much they spent on it? I mean, it was a ridiculous amount of money.
Sure.
Can it survive on a slow burn? And the answer is yes, it can. My response was, but Amazon, but it won't at Amazon. It might somewhere else. But, having that level of analytics in there, even, and this is important, even in a single player RPG with no multiplayer at all, no freemium at all, it is important. And so I missed this earlier, but Divinorium asked, are you using Unity Analytics? And I heard you mention it a minute ago. Is that one of the tools that you're using in this stuff?
I am evaluating Unity Analytics. I am not yet sold on Unity Analytics. I do see some advantages. We use Google Analytics right now. And then we use Facebook Analytics for mobile. Both good platforms. Both give you good generic data export to your data warehouse. I think Unity Analytics is probably a really good place to start. It's very low cost of entry. It just snaps right in, right? You can decorate stuff really easily. So I might end up using Unity Analytics for Cyber Knights. It's very possible. I'd say it's 50-50.
And if you're curious as to whether or not that'll happen, seriously follow Corey on Twitter, because he will unabashedly give you his honest opinion of any piece of tech that he's evaluating. And unlike his community, it's not necessarily with a velvet hand, at times.
No, I'm a bad customer, but in other people's lobby, I will shout and throw things. I'll be like, this doesn't even work.
This is trash. It's like, so I think Corey didn't like it. That's the man. Just thank you so much for stepping in here with no time to spare.
Taking time out of your 6-monitor day.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Greatly.
I'm happy.
Greatly.
It's good, always an inspiring and fun conversation to have with you guys. I love talking to you, and I think your community always asks good questions too.
Here's a good question.
For you.
We got one more from Michael Turner on LinkedIn. Do you not use Firebase on mobile in addition to FB?
We don't. I wish we did. It's one of the things that I would probably go back and change about our old engine. Like if I was ever going to build a game with it again, I would probably go back and rip out a bunch of stuff and replace it with Firebase. Their C++ SDK has come a tremendously long way since we first built this engine. So I would say yes, Firebase analytics, super awesome. Yeah.
But that's really the way with anything, though. Like, you start working on a project. As an animator, it happened to me all the time. It's like, oh, I've got these 30 characters to animate. And it's like, by the time I'm 3/4 of the way done, I have figured out, like, the perfect workflow and the perfect everything. And I just wish I could go back and reanimate everything. But that would be ridiculous.
You're like, you broken, poor bastards.
Yeah. They're all
you look
jacked
at the
up.
first one, you're like, oh, God, what's even wrong with your bones? Like, I
yeah, and it takes you like forever to animate them. It takes you like 5 hours. And then by the time you're done, you're like, oh, I can whip this, because I have my whole workflow down and I could bust them out and they look perfect. And it's like, oh, yeah, great stuff.
I think to wrap the analytics question, any analytics is awesome, because I'm not even talking about the fancy stuff about like, what device they're on or whatever. Like, I'm just talking about where they died. Like, you can get a ton of info from like 10 events, like what they train, what talent they use, where'd they go, where'd they die, who'd they fight. If you know those 5 things about your game, almost any game, you're going to know a whole bunch of stuff. And any of the analytics platforms can give you that. And then you can get fancier from there. I'm always trying to refine our analytics, find little additional metadata tags or events to track or whatever that give us better visibility. And I'll be like posting some stuff about how we're going to do it Cybernights, because Cybernights is weird. It's got a big 3D map. Never had a 3D map. Analytics in 3D is interesting. So kind of fun.
All right, so like we always do when I have you on, I'm going to ask a very selfish question,
Here we go
towards that list of, as you refer to it, high efficiency players. It's not that I suck; it's that I'm not a high.
Yes, polite. Always polite. Always polite.
When I am in a ship battle and I'm going to get my ass kicked because I did something wrong, why can't I just surrender? Why do I have to die every time? Why can't I just like throw the white flag out the window?
Actually I'm working on adding surrender. So because the game's not done. We still have miles to go. Features to add. It will be a diplomat talent called diplomatic surrender. The game, just as a design, it really didn't include surrender from a balance standpoint. Because in the alpha, when we had surrender, it was just killing people left and right. People would just surrender and get executed. So we found that once we removed surrender, player survival went up. But we are working on adding a talent that will sort of facilitate it without getting people killed. So it's on the list. It is something we're working on.
Well, Nightwolf just added to it and gave you a whole expansion pack. What if, in addition to surrender, pirates could enslave you and you would have to start from level 1 and try to reach captain?
Wow, that sounds horrible. Maybe next game. That could be a whole game in and of itself. Like, you are now a crew dog. You have 0 experience. You're like, wait, what do I do? You're like, there's an airlock that needs to be scrubbed. You're like, wait a second.
Clean the toilet.
There's a radiation leak in. Wait, what? It's tough.
Here's some Bondo. Go fix that radiation leak on the engine there.
Duct tape and baling wire.
We're going to let you get back to launching starships and doing all the things that you do so wonderfully. Thank you. And if you have further questions for Corey, he's on our Discord. Follow him on Twitter. it's well worth your time.
Yeah, and your Discord's one of the few I have notifications on, so you can at me and all.
Oh, how sweet!
Man.
Yeah, let me tell you, it's a small group.
I appreciate that.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you'll be able to catch this podcast and many, many others on anchor.fm/indie game business. And, we're on LinkedIn streaming now, so that's pretty awesome. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Oh, shit, there he went. Bam. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, OnlyFans. Jay does have an OnlyFans now. All right, thank you guys. Peace out.
Y'all take care. Be safe.